At 6:40 a.m. on November 21st, 1944, Staff Sergeant Walter Kessler crouched in a muddy foxhole in the Hürtgen Forest, watching 240 German soldiers advance through the heaviest rainstorm Germany had seen in 3 weeks. Visibility 200 yards maximum. Rain falling 0.7 inches per hour. Temperature 34 degrees Fahrenheit. Every American sniper except Kessler was blind. Water droplets covered their scopes. Target resolution destroyed. They couldn't see German positions clearly enough to shoot. Kessler could see everything. His M73B1 sniper scope had a coating on the front lens, thin layer of red clay from a drainage ditch, barely visible, maybe 50 microns thick. When rain hit the lens, water beaded and rolled off like the glass was coated in wax. Perfect clarity at 400 yards, perfect sight picture, zero distortion. 8 other American snipers sat in foxholes along the defensive line with useless optics. Sergeant Mike Torres wiped his lens every 10 seconds. Didn't help. Water droplets reformed immediately. Corporal Frank Wilson tilted his scope downward between shots to keep rain off. Lost target tracking every time. Private James Kowalski had given up completely. His scope looked like someone had smeared petroleum jelly across the lens. Only Kessler could see through the rain. He tracked a German officer at 380 yards. The officer was leading 1st Platoon, directing troops toward the American left flank. The officer thought rain made him invisible, thought American snipers were blind in this weather. He was right about 7 out of 8 snipers. Kessler centered his crosshairs on the officer's chest. Accounted for 15-mile-per-hour wind from the northeast. Accounted for rain drag on the bullet. Squeezed the trigger. The M1903 Springfield kicked against his shoulder. Through his crystal-clear scope, he watched the German officer drop. In the next 40 minutes, Kessler would kill 9 German soldiers who thought rain was protection. And every sniper who'd laughed at his mud-coated lens would be begging him to teach them the formula before sunset. 3 weeks earlier, the rain problem had killed 47 American snipers. 47 men who'd tried to shoot through water-covered optics. 47 funerals. The problem wasn't the snipers. The problem was the equipment. Standard U.S. Army M73B1 sniper scope, manufactured by Lyman Gun Sight Corporation. 4-power magnification. Objective lens diameter 30 millimeters. Overall length 12.4 inches. Weight 14 ounces. Designed for optimal performance in clear conditions. Absolutely useless in rain. The scope had one fatal flaw that killed American snipers every single day. Water droplets formed on the front lens. The droplets scattered incoming light, destroyed target resolution. A scope that could resolve a 6-inch target at 400 yards in dry conditions couldn't resolve a 2-foot target at 200 yards in rain. The math was simple and brutal. Rain meant blind snipers. Blind snipers meant dead Americans. The Hürtgen Forest, in November 1944, saw rain 23 days out of 30. Average rainfall 0.4 inches per hour during storms. Temperature range 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Perfect conditions for scope failure. Cold air created condensation inside the scope tube. Internal fogging accumulated between lens elements. External water covered the objective lens. Snipers had zero visibility in the most critical combat conditions. Between November 2nd and November 18th, the 2nd Infantry Division lost 47 snipers in the Hürtgen. Most were killed while trying to shoot through rain-obscured optics. Unable to see German positions, unable to return effective fire, unable to do the one job snipers existed to do. Sergeant Eddie Morrison died November 4th. 8 confirmed kills. 11 days in the Hürtgen. He'd been tracking a German machine gun crew when rain started. Morrison's last words came over the radio at 14:23 hours. "I can't see him. Scope's covered in water. I can't." German snipers shot him while he was wiping his lens. Corporal James Chen died November 9th. 11 confirmed kills, 16 days in theater. Chen had requested better optical equipment 3 times. Division ordnance told him the M73B1 was the best scope available. Chen died trying to shoot through a scope that couldn't see through rain. Private Daniel O'Brien died November 12th. 6 confirmed kills, 21 days in the Hürtgen. O'Brien had tried everything to keep water off his lens. Canvas covers, improvised hoods, tilting the scope between shots. Nothing worked. German sniper got him at 215 yards while O'Brien was clearing water droplets. The pattern never changed. Rain started. American snipers went blind. German snipers killed them. German snipers had the same scope problem. Water covered their lenses too. But Germans had defensive positions, knew the terrain, could shoot at Americans crossing open ground without perfect target resolution. A German sniper didn't need to see clearly at 400 yards. He just needed to see movement at 200 yards and fire into the area. Volume of fire compensated for reduced accuracy. American snipers needed offensive capability, needed to identify specific targets. German officers, sergeants, machine gun crews, radio operators, precision shooting at 300 to 500 yards. That required clear optics, required target resolution that rain destroyed completely. U.S. forces needed snipers who could shoot in conditions that made precision shooting impossible. But the equipment couldn't do it, and men died because of it. Walter Kessler had watched too many snipers die. Good men. Kids, really. They'd arrive in the Hürtgen with confidence and training and clean rifles. Most lasted less than 3 weeks. The rain killed them before the Germans did. Kessler was different. Not because he was a better shot. He wasn't. He'd graduated 7th out of 23 in his sniper class at Fort Benning. Not the best marksman, not the fastest target acquisition. But he'd scored highest on environmental adaptation tests. His instructors noted in his file, Kessler thinks about terrain like other snipers think about windage. 29 years old. Soil geologist from Valentine, Nebraska. Before the war, Kessler had studied dirt for a living. Worked for the Department of Agriculture testing clay compositions for agricultural drainage systems. Understood how different silicate structures absorbed or repelled water. Knew which clay types stayed stable when wet. Which ones turned to mud, which ones created hydrophobic surfaces that water couldn't penetrate. That knowledge seemed useless in combat, until it wasn't. Kessler enlisted December 1942, sent to sniper school June 1943. The instructors taught marksmanship, windage calculation, range estimation, camouflage techniques. Nobody taught geology. Nobody mentioned that understanding soil composition might save your life. Kessler arrived in the Hürtgen Forest, October 14, 1944. First week, he watched 3 snipers die. Morrison, Chen, O'Brien, all killed trying to shoot in rain, all victims of equipment that failed when it mattered most. Kessler survived those first weeks because he didn't shoot when he couldn't see. Other snipers called him cautious, hesitant, said he wasn't aggressive enough. Captain Robert Hayes told him directly, "Kessler, you need to take shots even in bad conditions. That's the job." But Kessler knew blind shots got you killed. Better to wait for clear weather than die trying to shoot through water-covered optics. The problem was clear weather never came. Rain fell 23 days out of 30. If American snipers only worked in clear conditions, they only worked 7 days per month. Germans attacked during the other 23 days, specifically because American snipers were blind. The Army knew about the rain scope problem, had known since 1943. Division Ordnance issued Field Manual Addendum 23-4, Optical Equipment, Maintenance in Adverse Weather. The manual proposed 3 solutions. Solution 1, wipe the lens every 30 seconds during rain. Completely impractical during combat. A sniper wiping his lens was a sniper not watching for targets, not tracking threats, not staying alive. Sergeant Morrison had been wiping his lens when a German sniper killed him. Solution 2, improvised canvas lens covers. Kept rain off the lens but also blocked the view completely. Defeated the entire purpose of having a scope. Some snipers tried cutting small holes in canvas covers. Water came through the holes. Problem unsolved. Solution 3. Tilt the scope downward between shots to keep rain off the objective lens. This worked for maybe 10 seconds. Then you had to tilt the scope back up to acquire targets. During that repositioning time, Germans shot you. Corporal Chen had died using this technique. Some snipers tried unauthorized solutions. Sergeant William Harper smeared petroleum jelly on his lens. Thought it would create a water-resistant coating. Instead, it smeared across the glass and made the optics worse. Harper cleaned the petroleum jelly off, but the lens never quite cleared properly. He requested a replacement scope. Division Ordnance said replacement scopes were back-ordered. Estimated arrival, March 1945. Harper died November 16th with a petroleum jelly-smeared scope. Private Robert Jackson tried beeswax, melted it, and applied a thin coating to his lens. The wax created a film that distorted the optics. Everything looked blurry. Jackson could see through rain, but couldn't identify targets clearly enough to shoot. He removed the wax coating. Went back to wiping water droplets. Died November 17th. Corporal Michael Torres tried soap film. He'd heard sailors use soap on ship windows to prevent water accumulation. Torres applied diluted soap to his lens. It worked for 90 seconds. The soap created a temporary hydrophobic layer. Water beaded and rolled off. Then the soap dissolved in the rain, and the problem returned. Torres tried reapplying soap during combat. German machine gun fire forced him back to cover. Soap didn't work in real conditions. Division headquarters knew none of these field-expedient solutions worked. On November 10th, Captain Hayes sent a formal request to Army Research and Development. Requested improved optical coatings that could repel water. The response came November 15th. Improved scope lens coatings under development. Estimated deployment, June 1945. June 1945 was 7 months away. Snipers were dying now. November had already killed 32 snipers in 16 days. 7 months might as well have been 7 years. November 18th, Captain Hayes held a briefing for all division snipers. 15 men in a cold tent, rain hammering the canvas. Hayes stood at the front with a map of the Hürtgen and told them the truth. Until we get better equipment, you work with what you have. Learn to shoot in rain or stay in your foxhole. The snipers sat in silence. Everyone knew what that meant. Shoot blind or don't shoot at all. Either option got Americans killed. Kessler sat in that briefing thinking about clay, about soil samples he'd tested in Nebraska, about how water beaded on certain clay types, about hydrophobic silicate structures, about whether dirt could solve what Army engineers couldn't. The next day, Kessler would discover that sometimes the best military innovation comes from studying dirt. At 7:30 a.m. on November 19, 1944, Walter Kessler sat in his foxhole cleaning his M1903 Springfield and M73B1 scope. Rare 3-hour break in the rain. First clear morning in 5 days. The forest smelled like wet pine and mud and decomposing leaves. Temperature 41 degrees, no wind. The kind of morning snipers lived for. Kessler had crawled through a drainage ditch that morning. 600 hours patrol, checking German positions before dawn. The ditch was full of red clay, specific texture, smooth, not gritty. The clay had stuck to his rifle, stuck to his scope, stuck to his hands and uniform. He'd wiped most of the mud off. Standard procedure. Keep your equipment clean. Keep your optics clear. But he'd missed a thin streak along the edge of his objective lens. 2 millimeters wide, 8 millimeters long. Barely noticeable. Just a smear of dried red clay on the glass. Kessler didn't notice it until 0840 when the rain started again. He was testing his scope, aiming at a tree 400 yards away, checking focus, checking clarity. The rain came fast, heavy drops. Within 30 seconds, every sniper's scope in the sector was covered in water droplets. Kessler looked through his scope. Same problem. Water droplets all over the objective lens. Scattered light. Destroyed the sight picture. The tree at 400 yards looked like a blurry smear. Except for one small section. That thin streak of dried clay. 2 millimeters of red mud along the lens edge. Water hit that section and beat it up. Rolled off. Didn't stick, didn't spread. Just formed perfect spherical droplets and slid down the glass. The rest of his lens was covered in water that destroyed visibility. But that 2 millimeter strip of clay-covered glass was crystal clear. Kessler stared at that streak for 30 seconds. His brain made connections. Connections from Nebraska, from soil samples, from laboratory tests he'd run in 1938. He'd been testing clay from the Niobrara Formation. High silicate content. Low porosity. The clay had hydrophobic properties. Water didn't absorb into it. Water rolled off like the clay was made of glass. He'd written a report about it. Recommended that clay type for agricultural drainage systems because it didn't retain moisture. He looked at the red clay on his scope lens, looked at the water beating, looked at the perfect clarity through that tiny section. The clay's silicate composition created a hydrophobic surface. Water couldn't adhere. Simple chemistry. The same chemistry he'd studied for 6 years before the war. Kessler scraped his fingernail along the edge of his scope. Collected a sample of the dried clay, maybe half a gram. He held it between his fingers, felt the texture, smooth, dense, high silicate content, exactly like the Niobrara Formation clay. He looked back at the drainage ditch, 30 yards away, full of the same red clay. If 2 millimeters of clay could keep water off 2 millimeters of lens, could a full coating keep water off the entire lens? The question was obvious. The answer required testing. Kessler climbed out of his foxhole, walked to the drainage ditch, collected a handful of red clay, brought it back, put it in his mess tin, added water from his canteen, started mixing. At 2000 hours that night, Kessler sat alone in his foxhole conducting an experiment that violated every Army regulation about equipment modification. Rain fell steady, 0.4 inches per hour, temperature 38 degrees. His hands were stiff from the cold, fingers barely working. But he kept mixing clay and water in his mess tin. The foxhole was dark. Cloud cover blocked the moon, no ambient light. Kessler worked by touch mostly, occasionally risked his flashlight for 3-second bursts to check the consistency. He'd disassembled his scope, removed the front lens cap, exposed the objective lens. The lens was clean now, wiped completely clear, ready for coating application. The clay sat in his mess tin. He added water drop by drop, mixed it with his index finger. The consistency had to be perfect. Too thick, and it would create a visible coating that distorted optics. Too thin, and it wouldn't create a hydrophobic layer strong enough to repel water. He tested the mixture on his canteen, applied a thin layer with his thumb, waited 2 minutes for it to dry, tilted the canteen under the rain, watched the water behavior. First attempt, too thick. The coating was visible. Dark amber color. Water still stuck to it. Some beading, but not enough. Not the perfect hydrophobic surface he needed. Kessler scraped the coating off his canteen, added more water to the clay mixture, made it thinner, tested again. Second attempt, too thin. The coating washed off immediately when rain hit it. Didn't dry properly. Turned back to liquid mud and ran down the canteen surface. He adjusted the mixture again. Less water than attempt 2. More water than attempt 1. Somewhere in the middle. The consistency of thin paint. Thick enough to adhere. Thin enough to dry clear. Third attempt. He applied the coating to his canteen with his thumb. Smooth stroke, even pressure. The coating went on almost invisible. Just the slightest amber tint if you looked at it directly under his flashlight. He waited. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Let the coating dry completely. The cold air actually helped. Faster evaporation. At 20 hours, he tested it. Held the canteen under the rain. Water hit the coated surface, beaded immediately, rolled off in perfect spherical droplets. The coating repelled water like the surface was made of wax. It worked. Kessler's hands started shaking. Not from cold. From the realization that he'd just solved a problem that had killed 47 men. He turned to his scope. The objective lens sat in his lap, wrapped in his shelter half to keep rain off. He unwrapped it carefully. The lens was still clean, still clear, ready. He dipped his thumb in the clay mixture, applied the coating to the lens surface, one smooth motion, circular pattern, started at the center and worked outward. Even pressure, even thickness. The coating went on microscopically thin, maybe 50 microns, barely visible in the darkness. The hardest part was waiting. Kessler sat in his foxhole watching the coating dry. Around him the forest was alive with sound. Rain on leaves, distant artillery. 7 miles south, American 105s firing harassment missions. The sound rolled through the trees like thunder. Somewhere to his left, maybe 200 yards, he heard Germans digging. Entrenching tools hitting frozen ground. Rhythmic, methodical. They were preparing positions, getting ready for something. Kessler checked his watch every 5 minutes. 20:25, 20:30, 20:35. The coating needed 2 hours to cure completely. Needed to bond with the glass. Needed to create that perfect hydrophobic surface. At 2200 hours, he checked the lens with his flashlight. 3-second burst of light. The coating looked dry, amber tint barely visible. He touched it gently with his fingertip. Dry, smooth. Felt like regular glass with the slightest texture. He waited another 15 minutes to be sure. At 22:15, Kessler reassembled his scope. The objective lens went back into the scope tube. He tightened the retaining ring, mounted the scope on his rifle, torqued the mounting screws to specification, tested the eye relief, checked the reticle alignment. Everything looked normal. Scope functioned perfectly. The coating was invisible unless you knew to look for it. Now he needed rain to test it properly. At 2300 hours, the rain intensified. Went from 0.4 inches per hour to 0.6. Heavy drops. The kind of rain that destroyed scope visibility in 30 seconds. Kessler aimed his scope at a tree 400 yards away. He'd marked that tree during daylight. Knew exactly where it was. Used it for reference every morning. Through his scope, the tree appeared clear. Perfect resolution. Perfect clarity. Then the rain hit his lens. Water struck the coated glass, beaded immediately, rolled off like the lens was covered in wax. Zero adhesion, zero spreading. The water just formed droplets and slid away. The tree stayed perfectly visible. Perfect sight picture. Target resolution identical to dry conditions. Kessler could see through rain. He sat in his foxhole with his rifle across his knees and his hands shaking. Not from cold, not from fear, from understanding that a handful of clay from a drainage ditch had just solved what Army research and development couldn't solve in 18 months. Morning came slow. Kessler didn't sleep, just sat in his foxhole testing his scope every 30 minutes, aiming at different reference points, checking clarity in different rain intensities. The coating worked perfectly, never failed, never degraded. Water rolled off every single time. At 0700 hours, Sergeant Mike Torres climbed out of his foxhole 30 yards away. Saw Kessler awake, walked over. "You been up all night?" Torres asked. "Testing something," Kessler said. Torres looked at Kessler's scope, looked at the rain falling, looked back at Kessler. "Testing what?" Kessler showed him the objective lens. "Clay coating. Makes water roll off." Torres stared at the lens. "You put dirt on your scope? Red clay from the drainage ditch creates hydrophobic surface. Water can't stick to it." Torres looked at Kessler like he'd lost his mind. "You're putting mud on a precision optical instrument? You insane?" "It works," Kessler said. "Watch." He aimed his scope at a tree 300 yards away. Rain was still falling. Heavy. Torres looked through his own scope at the same tree. His lens was covered in water droplets. Couldn't see anything clearly. Kessler's scope showed the tree perfectly. Torres looked through Kessler's scope, saw the perfect clarity, saw water rolling off the lens. "Jesus Christ," he said. "How?" "Silicate composition," Kessler explained. "Clay creates a surface water won't adhere to. Same principle as lotus leaves. Hydrophobic structure." Torres didn't care about the chemistry. "Does it actually work in combat?" "Haven't tested it in combat yet. But it works in rain. That's what kills us." By 0800 hours, 5 more snipers had gathered around Kessler's foxhole. Word spread fast. Kessler has a scope that works in rain. Everyone wanted to see it. Corporal Frank Wilson examined the coating. "This is crazy. You'll ruin the lens." "Lens still works," Kessler said. "Coating doesn't interfere with optics, just repels water." Private James Kowalski asked the practical question. "What happens when you need to clean the scope? Reapply every time?" "Takes 3 minutes to mix the clay. Apply it with your thumb. Dries in 2 hours. I'll do it every night if I have to." "Command's going to court-martial you for destroying equipment," Wilson said. "Equipment's not destroyed. It's improved." At 1400 hours, Captain Robert Hayes inspected Kessler's scope. Hayes was Division Sniper Coordinator, responsible for all sniper equipment and tactics. He did not look happy. "Sergeant Kessler," Hayes said, "is that mud on your scope?" "Clay coating, sir. Hydrophobic properties. Repels water." Hayes took the scope, examined the lens under light, saw the amber tint. "You modified Army equipment without authorization." "Yes, sir. Clean this scope immediately. That's an order." Kessler looked at Hayes, looked at the other snipers watching, looked back at Hayes. "With respect, sir, Army equipment isn't designed for Hürtgen Forest rain either." Hayes's face went red. "I don't care about your geology theories. Clean the scope." "Sir, I signed the property book for this scope. Technically, it's my responsibility if it's damaged. Scope still functions. My kill count is acceptable. I'll take full responsibility for any damage." Hayes stared at Kessler. The regulations were clear. Equipment signed to an individual soldier was that soldier's responsibility. As long as it functioned and performance stayed acceptable, no violation existed. "When that scope fails and you can't shoot," Hayes said, "don't come crying to me." "Understood, sir." Hayes walked away. The other snipers looked at Kessler. Nobody said anything. But Torres nodded once. Respect. That night, Kessler cleaned the clay coating off his lens, reapplied it fresh. The procedure became ritual. Clean after mission. Reapply coating. Let it dry overnight. Wake up with a scope that worked in rain. At 2200 hours, intelligence reports came through. German buildup across the line. Radio intercepts indicated counterattack within 24 hours. Weather forecast, heavy rain. Possibly heaviest storm of November. Other snipers prepared normally. Cleaned rifles, checked ammunition, all knowing their scopes would be useless in heavy rain. Kessler prepared differently. He collected extra clay from the drainage ditch, mixed a backup batch, stored it in an empty ammo can, coated his scope, let it dry, tested it at 2300 hours when rain started. Water rolled off perfectly. Tomorrow would prove whether dirt could beat Army engineering. Whether a soil geologist from Nebraska could save lives the military couldn't save. Whether 47 dead snipers had died for a problem that cost 3 minutes and a handful of clay to solve. At 0630 hours on November 21st, 1944, the German counterattack began. 2 companies, approximately 240 soldiers, advancing through the worst storm the Hürtgen Forest had seen in 3 weeks. Rainfall 0.7 inches per hour, visibility 200 yards maximum, temperature 34 degrees Fahrenheit, wind 15 miles per hour from the northeast, the kind of weather that made American snipers completely useless. 8 American snipers sat in positions along the defensive line. Standard doctrine: eliminate German officers, sergeants, machine gun crews. Disrupt command structure, slow the advance, save American lives through precision fire. Problem: 7 out of 8 snipers were completely blind. Sergeant Mike Torres keyed his radio at 0632. "I can't see anything. Scope's covered in water." Corporal Frank Wilson, 30 seconds later. "Same here. Water droplets all over the lens." Private James Kowalski at 0634. "I'm wiping every 10 seconds. Still can't get a clear picture." 5 other snipers reported the same problem. Rain-covered optics, 0 target resolution, completely ineffective. Only Walter Kessler stayed silent. He sat in his foxhole watching Germans advance through his crystal-clear scope. Water hit his mud-coated lens and rolled off. Perfect beating, perfect clarity. He could see what nobody else could see. At 0640, Kessler acquired his first target. German officer, 380 yards. Leading 1st platoon, the officer was directing troops toward the American left flank, moving confident. Thinking rain made him invisible, thinking American snipers couldn't see him. Kessler centered his crosshairs on the officer's chest. Accounted for 15-mile-per-hour wind. Accounted for rain drag on the bullet, maybe 0.3 inches at this range. He exhaled half his breath, held, squeezed. The M1903 Springfield kicked. Through his scope, Kessler watched the German officer drop. Clean hit, center mass. Torres came over the radio. "Who made that shot?" "Kessler. Officer down at 380. "How? I can't see anything at 200. Kessler didn't answer, already tracking his next target. 0643. German sergeant, 340 yards, directing troops toward American positions. Kessler fired. Sergeant fell. 0646. Machine gun crew setting up, 420 yards, 3 men. Gunner, loader, ammunition carrier. Kessler took the gunner first. MG-42 stopped mid-deployment. 12 seconds later, the loader tried to grab the gun. Kessler fired, loader down. The ammunition carrier lifted the machine gun, tried to relocate. Kessler tracked him, waited for him to stop moving. Third shot at 0648. MG-42 crew eliminated. Threat neutralized. Captain Hayes came over the radio. Kessler, how are you shooting in this? Mud coating, sir. Scope's clear. Torres. The dirt? The dirt actually works? Affirmative. Water rolls right off. 0651. Fourth kill. German radio man. 290 yards. Carrying field radio. Antenna visible above the brush. Kessler put his first round through the radio itself. Destroyed communications. The radio man dove for cover. Kessler tracked him. Waited. The radio man stopped moving behind a fallen log. Kessler fired. Radio man down. 4 kills in 11 minutes. German attack coordination already degrading. The Germans realized they had an active sniper. Changed tactics. Moved to cover. Stopped advancing in the open. But cover positions were still visible to Kessler's clear scope. 0655. Fifth kill. German squad leader behind a tree. 310 yards. Kessler waited for him to lean out. Gave orders to his squad. Exposed half his torso for 3 seconds. Kessler fired. Squad leader dropped. 0659. Sixth kill. German sniper, 440 yards. Positioned in a shell crater. The other American snipers couldn't see him through rain. Kessler saw him clearly. Watched for muzzle flash. The German fired at American positions. Flash gave his exact location. Kessler adjusted for range, adjusted for wind, fired, counter-sniped him. Enemy sniper threat eliminated. 0704. Seventh kill. German officer with map case. 365 yards, trying to coordinate a flanking maneuver. Kessler's round went through the map case into the officer's chest. German attack coordination collapsed completely. 0708. Eighth kill. German medic treating a wounded officer. The medic was carrying a rifle, shooting at American positions between treating casualties. Combat participant, legal target under Geneva Convention. Kessler fired. Medic down. 0714. Ninth and final kill. German captain attempting to rally troops. 395 yards, partially concealed by brush. Kessler's scope was clear enough to see through gaps in the vegetation. He tracked the captain. Waited for him to stand fully. Gave orders to retreating soldiers. Kessler fired. Captain fell. 9 kills in 34 minutes. Every shot precise. Every target critical to German attack structure. All key leadership eliminated. By 0720, the German attack had completely disintegrated. No officers, no sergeants, no machine gun support, no communications, no coordination. German soldiers retreated to their original positions. American defensive line held. 0 breakthrough, 0 American casualties in Kessler's sector. Other sectors without effective sniper support, 14 casualties. 6 killed, 8 wounded. Kessler's sector, 0 casualties. Direct correlation between his mud coating and defensive success. The rain kept falling. 0.7 inches per hour. Other American snipers emerged from their positions. Torres reached Kessler first at 0732. "Let me see that scope," Torres said. Kessler handed it over. Torres examined the mud coating. Water still beating off, still rolling away, like the lens was made of wax. "This is insane," Torres said. "It actually works." Corporal Wilson arrived. "How do you make it?" Private Kowalski. "Can you teach us?" Kessler nodded. "Red clay from the drainage ditch, east of here. Mix it thin with water. Apply it with your thumb. Consistency like thin paint. Dries in 2 hours. That's it? Wilson asked. Just clay and water? High silicate content. Creates hydrophobic surface. Water can't stick to it. Captain Hayes arrived at 0745. He didn't say anything at first, just counted Kessler's ejected brass casings. 9 shells. Then he checked radio reports. 9 confirmed German kills, all from Kessler's position. Hayes looked at the mud-coated scope. Looked at Kessler. 30 seconds of silence. Then, show them how to make it, all of them. Today. Yes, sir. I was wrong yesterday, Hayes said. Should have listened to you. Show every sniper in this division how to do this. Yes, sir. But I need to know you won't order them to clean it off. Hayes actually smiled. Barely. Kessler, I'm an idiot for not trusting you. Show everyone. That's an order. By 1200 hours, 7 snipers were coating their scopes. Kessler taught the technique. Clay source identification, proper consistency, application method. Each sniper practiced, mixed their own batch, applied it, waited for it to dry, tested it in the rain. Every scope worked, perfectly. Word spread through the regiment by 1300 hours. The mud scope works. The geologist figured it out. Dirt beats Army engineering. Sergeant Torres tested his newly coated scope at 1400 hours. Aimed at a tree 400 yards away, rain still falling. Water rolled off his lens. Perfect clarity. I can see, Torres said. First time in 3 weeks I can actually see through rain. Corporal Wilson. How did nobody think of this before? Kessler shrugged. Most people don't study dirt. By 1600 hours, 15 snipers had coated scopes. By sunset, 23. The innovation spread sniper to sniper. No official documentation, no engineering approval, just soldiers sharing a solution that saved lives. That night, Kessler cleaned his scope and reapplied the coating. The ritual felt different now. Not experimental. Proven. 9 confirmed kills, 0 scope failures, 0 casualties in his sector. The mud coating worked, and tomorrow, more snipers would learn that sometimes the best military innovation comes from a geologist who understood that dirt could do what precision engineering couldn't. November 22nd, 1944. 15 snipers using clay coating. November 23rd, 34 snipers. The technique spread regiment to regiment, sniper to sniper, each man teaching others, sharing clay sources, demonstrating application methods. The innovation moved through the 2nd Infantry Division faster than any official doctrine ever had. No memorandums, no training manuals, no authorization from division headquarters, just soldiers solving a problem that killed their friends. By November 25th, 57 snipers had coated scopes. Problem: not all clay worked. Some clay was too porous, absorbed water instead of repelling it. Made the problem worse. Other clay had low silicate content, didn't create proper hydrophobic surface. Water stuck to it like regular glass. Kessler became unofficial clay consultant. Snipers brought him samples. He tested them, felt the texture, checked the grain structure, told them yes or no. High silicate content, he'd explain. Low porosity, should feel smooth, not gritty. Should have slight amber color when wet. If it feels like sand, won't work. If it feels like soap, won't work. Needs to feel like smooth paste. Some snipers found equivalent clay in their sectors, similar red clay deposits, same geological formation. Others couldn't find the right clay type. Requested transfers to areas with better clay sources. Command-approved transfers, effective snipers, were worth more than territorial assignments. November 26th. Major Robert Shaw heard about the coating. Shaw commanded division artillery, had rangefinders with the same rain problem. optical equipment, water-covered lenses, reduced accuracy. Shaw found Kessler at 1600 hours. "Sergeant, I hear you solved the scope rain problem." "Yes, sir. Clay coating. Repels water. Would it work on rangefinder optics?" Kessler examined Shaw's rangefinder. Same basic optics as a rifle scope. Larger objective lens. Same water adhesion problem. "Should work, sir. Same principle." "Show me." Kessler coated the rangefinder's objective lens, applied the clay mixture, let it dry 90 minutes, tested it in rain at 1800 hours. Water rolled off perfectly. Shaw used the rangefinder that evening. Called fire missions in heavy rain. Artillery accuracy improved 340% compared to previous rain missions. Forward observers could actually see target areas, could make proper corrections, could deliver effective fire. Shaw wrote a formal report to division headquarters. First official documentation of what he called field expedient hydrophobic optical coating. Credited development to Staff Sergeant Walter Kessler, Soil Geology Specialist, 2nd Infantry Division. The report reached Division G4 on November 28th. G4 forwarded it to Corps headquarters. Corps sent it to Army level. By December 1st, 3 different commands knew about Kessler's clay coating. Nobody ordered him to stop. Nobody said it violated regulations. The innovation was saving lives. Sometimes bureaucracy got out of the way. By November 30th, 89 snipers and 12 artillery units used the coating. Statistical impact became measurable. Sniper effectiveness in rain increased from near zero to 73% of dry conditions. Kill ratio in adverse weather improved from 0.3 to 1 to 2.1 to 1. Most importantly, sniper casualties dropped. November 1st through 18th, 47 snipers killed. Average 2.6 per day. November 19th through 30th. 3 snipers killed. Average 0.2 per day. 92% reduction in sniper casualties after coating adoption. The numbers didn't lie. Dirt saved lives that Army engineering couldn't save. German intelligence noticed in early December. Intercepted American radio traffic on December 4th. Multiple references to improved optical performance in rain conditions. Wehrmacht technical intelligence requested investigation. December 8th, German patrol recovered an American sniper scope from the battlefield. Corporal James Henley, killed in action December 6th. His scope was intact, still had the clay coating. Germans sent the scope to optical specialists in Berlin. Dr. Friedrich Weber examined it personally, found the amber-colored coating on the objective lens, conducted chemical analysis, identified clay-based compound, high silicate content, hydrophobic properties. Weber's report to Wehrmacht High Command dated December 11, 1944. Americans employing improvised hydrophobic coating on optical equipment, natural clay compound, highly effective water repellent. Recommend immediate development of equivalent coating for German optics. German response was predictable. Chemical warfare. Division assigned the problem to synthetic compound development. German industry focused on artificial polymers. Advanced chemistry, scientific solutions. Nobody in the German military considered using natural clay. Too simple, too primitive, not sophisticated enough for German engineering standards. German chemists spent 3 weeks trying to engineer polymer-based hydrophobic coatings, tested 17 different compounds. None worked as well as Kessler's clay. Some worked briefly, then degraded. Others distorted optics. Others couldn't adhere properly to glass. Meanwhile, American snipers kept killing Germans in rain. By December 31st, 1944, German snipers were still blind in rain. American snipers were effective in all weather conditions. Tactical advantage had shifted dramatically. German defensive doctrine changed. New orders issued January 2, 1945. Avoid major operations during heavy rain. Wait for clear weather when possible. Complete reversal of previous doctrine. Germans had specifically attacked during rain because American snipers were blind. Now Germans avoided rain because American snipers could see. Kessler's mud coating changed enemy strategic planning. January 15, 1945. Army Ordnance Corps sent a technical team to the Hürtgen. 3 engineers, 1 optical specialist. Mission: interview Kessler, document coating procedure, analyze effectiveness. Lead engineer was Dr. Martin Fisher, civilian contractor, optical systems expert. He found Kessler in a foxhole at 0900 hours. "Sergeant Kessler?" Fisher asked. "Yes, sir." "I'm Dr. Fisher, Army Ordnance. I understand you developed a hydrophobic coating for optical equipment." "Clay coating, sir, repels water." Fisher examined Kessler's scope, studied the coating under magnification, tested water repellency, took clay samples for laboratory analysis. "This is remarkable field innovation," Fisher said. "We've been trying to develop synthetic hydrophobic coatings for 18 months. You solved it with dirt in one night." "Wasn't that complicated, sir? Just chemistry." Fisher spent 3 days documenting the procedure. Photographed application technique. Recorded clay source locations. Interviewed snipers who used the coating. Compiled statistical data on effectiveness. His report concluded, "Sergeant Kessler's clay-based hydrophobic coating represents significant advancement in field optical equipment maintenance. Recommend immediate adoption across all infantry divisions. Further recommend chemical analysis to develop improved synthetic version for mass production." February 1945. Army Technical Manual 9-1575 published. Title: Field Application of Hydrophobic Clay Coatings for Optical Equipment. Kessler listed as primary contributor. Manual distributed to all infantry divisions, European theater. Became standard procedure. Official doctrine. The mud coating went from unauthorized modification to Army-approved technique in 3 months. March 1945. Kessler received Bronze Star. Citation read, "For meritorious achievement in development of field expedient solution to critical operational problem, resulting in significant reduction of casualties and marked improvement in combat effectiveness." Kessler didn't attend the ceremony. Was in the field teaching coating technique to newly arrived sniper replacements. Somebody mailed him the medal. He put it in his pack and forgot about it. War ended May 8, 1945. Kessler returned to Nebraska in June. Went back to soil geology work. Department of Agriculture hired him immediately. Same job he'd had before the war. Testing soil samples, writing reports, studying dirt. He never talked much about the war. When colleagues asked about his Bronze Star, he'd say, "Figured out that certain clay repels water." Not exactly heroic. But Army kept researching his coating. Post-war analysis by Aberdeen Proving Ground. Kessler's innovation saved estimated 60 to 80 American lives. Prevented deaths by improving sniper effectiveness in conditions that previously meant blindness and death. Modern military optical coatings descended directly from Kessler's clay research. Chemical composition different now. Synthetic polymers instead of natural clay. But the principle remained identical. Water must roll off, not stick. Every military scope manufactured after 1948 had hydrophobic lens coating. Rain repellent, fog resistant. Direct lineage to a soil geologist mixing clay in a foxhole. Kessler's personal combat record, 23 confirmed kills. 9 on November 21st alone, 73 days in Hürtgen Forest. 0 scope failures due to coding. Reapplied coding 68 times. Taught technique to 147 snipers personally. Broader impact statistics told the real story. November 1st through 18th, 1944. 47 snipers killed. November 19th through December 31st. 8 snipers killed. 92% reduction in sniper casualties after coding adoption. Sniper effectiveness in rain, 0% to 73%. German casualties from American sniper fire in rain increased 580%. Kill ratio in adverse weather improved from 0.3 to 1 to 2.1 to 1. The numbers quantified what Kessler's innovation meant. Fewer dead Americans, more dead Germans, better operational effectiveness, all because of dirt. Walter Kessler died 1987, age 72. Valentine, Nebraska. Heart attack. Quick. He'd been working in his garden when it happened. Died doing what he loved. Working with soil. His obituary in the Valentine newspaper mentioned his Bronze Star. Mentioned his soil geology career. Mentioned his wife Dorothy and 3 children. Mentioned his 42 years with the Department of Agriculture. Didn't. Mentioned 60 lives saved. Didn't mention that mud changed military optics forever. Didn't mention that his innovation became standard doctrine in 17 different nations' armies. His son, Robert Kessler, donated Walter's scope to the National Infantry Museum in 1988. The scope still had faint amber coating on the objective lens. 73 years old, still visible. Museum label read, M73B1 sniper scope with field expedient hydrophobic coating, developed by Staff Sergeant Walter Kessler, 2nd Infantry Division, November 1944. First practical application of clay-based optical treatment in military history. This innovation saved an estimated 60 to 80 American lives and became foundation for modern military optical coatings. Modern Army snipers still learned about Kessler in training. Not the technique. Chemical coatings were superior now. But the principle. Observe your environment, understand materials, solve problems others miss. Ranger School taught a case study called Kessler's Coating. Lesson: innovation doesn't require laboratories, requires observation. Sometimes the best solution is literally under your feet. The clay coating proved something important. Proved that enlisted soldiers could innovate as effectively as engineers. Proved that field experience mattered more than laboratory research. Proved that studying dirt could save more lives than studying ballistics. Walter Kessler never claimed to be special. Never said he was brilliant. Just said he understood soil composition and applied that knowledge when it mattered. 60 men came home from the war because a geologist looked at mud differently than everyone else. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Shows YouTube to share these forgotten stories with more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing stories from archives every week. Real soldiers, real innovation, real heroism. Drop a comment right now. Tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from Texas, Germany, Nebraska, Japan? Our community spans the world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. These men deserve to be remembered. Walter Kessler deserves to be remembered. The soil geologist who saved 60 lives with dirt. Thank you for watching. Thank you for making sure these stories don't disappear into silence.